Gaza. Still with us is Major General Eitan Dangot, former coordinator of government activities in the Palestinian territories. And joining us, Jeremy Saltan, political advisor to the Yamina Party of now Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and director of its English operations. Eitan, I want to pick up on what you said because as you noted, Israel did not react so far to those renewed arson balloon attacks, even though it had said zero tolerance policy, and there will be a response. Do you think we should see a military response of some kind? Do you think we will see one?
I believe, and I think it will be right to react because we have to make it clear to Hamas and to anybody around us that we will not agree to any kind of terror attacks, none of Israeli civilians. Explosive balloons is no different than anything else, but it's risking children and elders as one who are living peacefully, as we have to serve them the security life around Gaza Strip. And by using explosive balloon, Hamas is trying to test us in a low level. I believe that when we are now in a so sensitive junction on the discussions in Cairo between Egypt and Hamas and the other radical terror organization with Israel under the umbrella of the United States, Israel has to show, and I believe the new government will adopt the declaration of the former war because the people are not different.
In what way? We didn't see any injuries, of course, any casualties from the balloons. What kind of response would you expect and when?
I think that the tools that IDF or other kind of tools we can use can serve us the response in a way that it will be chosen. And it has to be, first of all, we have to see how it ended. It's not end, still it ended.
Right, right.
The second is, it can be in the middle of the night, it can be day after. I can try to assess that it will be during the night, and I believe it will be a response on a proposition that will give up the answer that we will not agree anymore to what we saw in the past that will continue now in the coming future.
I'm going to assume you said proportion. There were no casualties from today, so you're talking about maybe a targeting, some structure of military value or post.
The families of targets of the way of reaction has a lot of opportunities. One of them can be post, second can be of way of industry for rockets. It can be storage for rockets. There are a lot of opportunities. Right. I very clear-head, let's say, can be sure that my colleagues from the past in the IDF, under request from the political level, will suggest what and how to respond. I hope it will be. I think it should be.
Right. Jeremy, this is a first test for the Bennett-led government. So far, at least the situation in Jerusalem has been kept under control. The new police commissioner, Omer Balev, deployed overwhelming force to do it, and so far it's been quiet. But as Eitan said, we did see the renewal of these arson balloons, and there'll be certainly the actions of the government in the next 24 hours might be looked at. Do you think we might see some kind of response from that?
Well, you know, I wasn't in the situation room.
I'm sure you're not.
I'm here in the studio with you guys. I think what Eitan said is important. Sometimes the response doesn't happen immediately. Sometimes it happens during the night. Sometimes it might even happen 2 days later, where perhaps someone just drops somewhere around the globe. You need to know that when you go ahead and do something to Israel, there is going to be a response. I'm fully confident that there will be some sort of response in, again, the appropriate manner based on what it is that we see. I think what's important here to really notice is that there's a big difference between balloons and rockets being fired here. There were a lot of fears that we were going to see a much different picture tonight. I think it says a lot to the deterrence that we have, that in terms of this first test that we're seeing of the new government, that it's on a much lower scale than quite a few pundits expected.
But I do want to say there have been some reports, Arabic media reporting, that Egypt may have had a role here pressuring Hamas at this very delicate time when Hamas will need Egypt, for example, for its reconstruction efforts in Gaza. You think Egypt played a role here?
I'm sure about it, because Egypt is fulfilled now a very heavy task, because besides the regular task that was also in my time when Egypt hosted the discussions and were like a coordinator for the discussions. I think that especially after this event, Egypt has expectation by the United States to be the major operator, also to make things inside Gaza. And for Egypt itself, the new situation with the United States is one of their main goals strategically to keep such a close contact. So many the phone calls between the president of Egypt and United States president, I don't remember for many years. And we know the sensitivity the Democratic Party has towards Egypt. And I think that now Egypt is now in a very high place. Concerning Hamas, I believe and I'm sure that the Egyptians tried to warn Hamas and try to talk with them not to bring a situation of escalation. It will be damage Hamas first of all. Secondly, I think that Egypt will discuss with Israel. But the third and the important thing is that also from now knowledge, Egypt recognized the right of Israel to exist, to defend itself, and to prevent from any terror organization to make any kind of terror attack about its civilian, and this is the time. And I will tell you why. Because the eyes of the most terror organization from the north, Hezbollah, is watching our reaction. We are going to enter to a very sensitive coming 2-3 years concerning the development with Iran and with the main proxy of terror in the Middle East. It means Hezbollah. Hezbollah is make very close its connection and coordination with Hamas. So we have to start it from tonight.
Right. Okay. Well, I do want to get back a little, you might say, the political angle here. Certainly, as we said, perhaps at least until now, Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and Defense Minister Gantz and the new Minister of Internal Security, Omer Balev, will have to be pleased by the way things are going. But one member of the coalition, Jeremy, was not, and that's Ram Chairman Mansour Abbas, who made this public statement today. Quote, the flag parade in Jerusalem today is an unrestrained provocation. Its essence lies in hatred and incitement to violence, and it's an attempt to reignite the region for political purposes. The public security minister and the police should have canceled it. There is no doubt that the goal of the parade's organizers is to challenge the new government and take us back to an unnecessary escalation that will endanger human lives, as we have experienced in the past months. So there was a decision by this government to let the parade go through and to let it go through that route, which took it through Arab neighborhoods. And as we saw, not everybody in the new government, or should say new coalition, is happy about it.
Yeah, look, it's an unfortunate statement by Abbas, of course, and it is to be expected that he would say something like that, and we'll show understanding towards Abbas, considering his political environment that he's in right now. Look, it was Bar-Lev, as you pointed out, who's labor, okay? He's not from Yamina or New Hope, who went ahead and listened to the police commissioner. He listened to the other various security officials. He came to a decision that there was absolutely no reason to not go forward with the march, and he did so on a professional basis. So, you know, this was a decision that was made by the government. It's supported by the great majority of the coalition. It's unfortunate, as I said, that one of the 8 parties of the coalition does not agree to it, and we'll show understanding.
I want to just get back to Eitan, the question of Jerusalem, because as you said, and you said earlier, perhaps now the goal of the new government, as it was the previous government, is to limit in or refute this notion that Hamas is trying to disseminate, that it is now the new guardian of Jerusalem. But we are going to see, for example, the situation in Sheikh Jarrah, the Supreme Court, and in Silwan, the courts, the Supreme Court still may decide. They still may decide on an eviction of the residents. So this situation in Jerusalem, even if this day ends up relatively quietly, is certainly far from over.
I may say that there will be a lot of mines during the way, but one thing is very clear. Hamas has to be returned to the deterrence, to understand that it has no contact to anything inside Israel. A terror organization should be used towards it, the tools that you fight against terror. Concerning the sensitive issue in Jerusalem, I believe that the present government has to use things to be much more sensitive, to be clever enough, not to do things that are right, but not on the timing that has to be, has to think about the large picture because of many reasons, like that you just raised concerning the new coalition that has a very clear goal, is to bring the unity to Israel, not the agreements, but what is agreed. And what is agreed to try to bring inside Israel the way of the life between Jews, Arabs, right and left, most of the people, I'm not talking about radicals, to the way there will be agreement towards what we have to do to bring the unity, and what we have not to do now can wait for the future.
Well, Eitan makes a great point,
yes,
because it's also about finding unity both within the current coalition, or also even between Israeli society, because I would say an issue, for example, like the Sheikh Jarrah issue, the issue of housing rights in East Jerusalem for the Arab or Palestinian residents, is a sensitive one that divides the country and divides the government.
Yeah, but people know my feeling on this, and I think the party position that we feel that it's actually the diversity of this coalition which allows us to be able to deal with these issues and allow us to be able to heal the nation, which is just so much needed after 4 elections in 2 years. Look, when you have this real true unity government where you, for the first time, you have parties from both Jewish and Arab parties. Again, you've had Arab MKs, but having an Arab party, this is a new deal. And of course, right and left, religious, secular immigrants and native Israelis, we have a great opportunity to really go ahead and do a lot of work on the society level and deal with a lot of these issues that have really, frankly, been swept under the rug during the last 12 years.
Okay, it's going to be very difficult to find a consensus, though, on this. But
if we can find this government and figure out a way to get it through, Kalev, then we should be at least maybe
that's a start. Maybe that's a start. Jeremy Saltan of the Yamina Party, Major General Eitan Dangot, thank you for joining us on the rundown.